The American dream. For generations, it was more than a promise. It was a guiding light, a belief etched into the nation's identity, that with hard work, determination, and opportunity, a better life awaited. It was the notion that all people could achieve happiness and freedom no matter their background. It was the hope that JFK inspired when he encouraged Americans to
ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
In the dream that Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of when he announced,
I have a dream.
These words defined a vision of progress, opportunity, and unity. But somewhere along the way, the dream began to crumble.
$33 trillion. That's what the U.S. national debt was as of early September 2023.
The Gun Violence Archive counts more mass shootings so far this year than days.
How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them?
The 26-year-old black woman was shot dead earlier in the year when police forced their way into her home as part of a botched drug investigation.
There were 356 targeted assaults, acts of harassment, and/or vandalism against the LGBTQ community in the U.S., including the deadly attack at a Colorado bar.
Get down. That sounds like a gunshot.
Today, for millions of young Americans, the dream feels like a distant memory. Young voters in America have lost faith in the traditional belief that their country represents the ideal of freedom and prosperity. How could they when they've grown up in an era where negative views of government and institutional powers are constantly reinforced through the widespread availability of online media? These populations have been left vulnerable in their search for something that inspires hope and restores pride in their country, creating an opportunity for influencers to exploit their role in shaping the youth's perceptions. These influencers provide more than just their opinions. They provide answers. Answers that appear genuine and unfiltered to their audience, in contrast to the perceived lies of mainstream media. They portray themselves as rebels against an unjust system, voices of truth advocating for the disillusioned and forgotten. However, there is a darker reality hidden beneath this seeming authenticity.
Where you have this baby that you're responsible for, and you're like, that's gonna outlive me. I'm gonna raise that child. And you're like, oh yeah, I think it's okay to abort it because it's really small and I can't see it. Like, basically you're saying, like, the Holocaust would have been fine as long as everyone would have been shorter than you.
I think that feminism overall was a bad thing. I think women are happier when we have, a family and kids over a career in the long run.
I don't think many women are wife material. A lot of you guys have bad habits. You talk back. You don't respect male authority. You think you're equal to your guy. You think you could, motivate him or whatever it may be, or tell him what to do. And women are the inferior gender. And we need to step up and be leaders in every way because realistically speaking, you guys are emotional, erratic, and make a lot of bad decisions.
Separate, but you can't actually divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be like physically abusive.
You got to endure. People are too...
You want to stick in the relationship?
People are just...
look,
people
nowadays
are just... Everybody quits. Everybody gives up. It's too hard. I'm this XYZ. This is why I'm special, so I can... This entire situation based upon me being special.
Simple stuff. So being straight's good because you could have kids and you can start a family and you can create more good people. Yeah. Gay people does not produce anything good. That's just the truth. Like, yes, they
What about a gay family that adopted a bunch of kids who needed a home? That not good?
Yeah, but that kid's going to grow up weird because it's not going to have the proper family dynamic. It's worse than actually having a mother and father.
Guess what? Guys win again. Okay, men win again. And yes, we control your bodies. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. It's your body, my choice. And men, women again. Men win again. There will never, ever be a female president. Never. There will never be a female president, ever. It's over. Glass ceiling? Dude, it's a ceiling made of fucking bricks. You will never break it. Your stupid face keeps hitting the brick ceiling. We will keep you down forever. You will never control your own bodies. You will never be the president of the global empire. Never gonna happen, sweetie. Your body, our choice.
By framing themselves as martyrs resisting a corrupt system, they draw on followers who feel marginalized or misunderstood by mainstream discourse. This often leads to the adoption of extremist ideologies, where social justice issues, already fueled by societal tensions, are framed through a lens of fear. Certain groups are pointed out as threats to traditional culture, while these influencers present themselves as saviors, claiming the role of creators and distributors of the narratives they promote. The relentless reinforcement of these narratives deepens ideological divides, allowing impressionable audiences to become further radicalized as algorithms push them deeper into an echo chamber of such content. What begins as a search for belonging often culminates in the adoption of divisive, fear-driven ideologies. The American dream has since been reframed as a battleground where traditional values must be defended against its supposed cultural erosion. Trump's campaign didn't just observe this shift, it seized it. He emerged as the leader many believed they needed, a symbol of resistance who promised to restore what they saw as lost by America. By aligning with right-wing content creators, his campaign transformed personal disillusionment into political loyalty, turning grievances into a rallying cry for his movement. These creators, adept at forming parasocial relationships with their followers, provided a direct line into the minds of young voters. And now, we find ourselves in a reality where these ideologies have not only prevailed but reshaped the nation. The Trump campaign leveraged the influence of right-wing online content creators to radicalize young men, fostering parasocial relationships and institutional distrust. This strategy didn't just win votes. It normalized extremist ideologies, threatening marginalized communities and the very foundation of democracy itself. The term far-right is an umbrella term that incorporates ideas from moderate conservatism up until extremist and radical right views, and is particularly hard to define, as explained by Rothart and others in their paper, as the definition is strategically blurred by extremist actors to obfuscate the real intentions. Because of this, the term is loosely defined as relevant narratives and characteristics, including nationalism, racism, exclusionism, xenophobia, anti-democratic attitudes, authoritarianism, nativism, and populism. These ideas have grown in the United States over the last decade, paralleled by the rise in social media. The CSIS notes that right-wing extremists are increasingly using the internet and social media to issue propaganda statements, organize travel to attend protests and other events, recruit members, and communicate with others. The internet and social media provide an unparalleled opportunity to reach a broader audience. Because of this, a new wave of right-wing content creators has emerged, gaining traction on platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. These creators, such as Andrew Tate, Ben Shapiro, and Aiden Ross, have become influential voices, especially among young men searching for identity and purpose. As influencers, which are defined as public individuals who shape how cultural texts are distributed and received within society while leveraging their digital personas for economic gain, they occupy a powerful position in the media landscape. Through brand partnerships, sponsorships, and strategic messaging, they not only monetize their platforms, but also cultivate devoted followings. Andrew Tate, with his hyper-masculine branding, offers an image of success rooted in wealth and dominance. Ben Shapiro, through his fast-talking and supposed fact-driven logic, simplifies complex issues into an easily digestible conservative narrative. And Aiden Ross, a relatable and entertaining live streamer, normalizes far-right talking points under the guise of humor. Their influence lies not just in their content, but in the relationship they cultivate with their audiences. This phenomenon, known as parasociality, allows viewers to feel a personal connection with these creators, even though the interaction is entirely one-sided. Parasociality is defined as the non-reciprocal socio-emotional connections with media users, and has been proving to increase marketing effectiveness, influence consumers' opinions and interests, and emotions and moods online and offline. By sharing personal anecdotes and speaking directly to their followers, these influencers build trust and loyalty. This trust is then weaponized as influencers exploit their platforms to reinforce cultural grievances and societal fears. They frame traditional values as under attack by the so-called woke ideologists. The term woke was once a positive term, originally coined by progressive Black Americans and used in racial justice movements in the early to mid-1900s that meant someone is informed, educated, and conscious of social injustice and racial inequality. Today, the term has been co-opted by the right as a pejorative label used to criticize progressive values and social justice movements. What once symbolized awareness and activism against systemic injustices is now weaponized to mock efforts towards equality. This anti-woke rhetoric serves as a catalyst for hate by portraying progressive movements not as efforts towards equality, but as existential threats to their audience's way of life. As these messages spread, social media algorithms amplify their reach as they are designed to maximize engagement, meaning that controversial or polarizing content often gets prioritized, especially when interacted with. This results in an echo chamber where followers are repeatedly exposed to the same ideas, deepening their convictions and isolating them from opposing viewpoints. This quickly morphs into the process of radicalization, as young men consume hours of content reinforcing these narratives. The worldview begins to narrow, and their distrust of alternative perspective grows. They become more susceptible to conspiracy theories and less open to constructive dialogue, transforming them into a base of loyal, driven followers. This phenomenon ties directly into the concept of truth and opposition. Influencers and right-wing creators position themselves as voices of resistance, claiming to expose truths that mainstream institutions suppress. By preying on their audience's growing distrust of traditional authority, they establish themselves as beacons of free speech and authenticity. Their audience is encouraged to view opposition to woke ideas as virtuous. Since he first ran, Donald Trump has been publicly critical of traditional media sources. Trump had been labeling journalists as the enemy of the people since 2017, and the initial outcry over this authoritarian rhetoric has been replaced by numbness. His discounting of news stories as fake news and his conjoining of journalists with the Democratic Party had also become common tropes. They were echoed in scores of speeches and press gaggles, repeated in hundreds of Twitter posts, and echoed in right-wing news outlets. Years of relentless belligerence towards journalists had simply become a standard part of the discursive environment. In this current climate of media distrust, Trump's campaign found an alternative avenue to disseminate its message: influencers. Unlike traditional journalists, these creators have no obligation to journalistic standards. As stated by authors exploring the role of media in post-fact society, rather than acting as a source of accurate information, online media frequently promotes misinformation in an attempt to drive traffic and social engagement. Because these influencers operate independently, they are not bound by the ethical standards typically expected of mainstream news sources. This freedom makes it easy for them to manipulate their audience, abusing the trust established through their pre-existing parasocial relationship. For Trump's campaign, this non-traditional path was a clear choice. By leveraging influencers who already had loyal fan bases, Trump sidestepped traditional media gatekeepers and directly reached voters through messengers who felt relatable and credible to their followers. Influencers used their platforms to validate and spread Trump's word, which further legitimized them in the eyes of their followers, creating an environment of distrust towards mainstream media and unwavering loyalty to the MAGA ideology. MAGA, which stands for Make America Great Again, encompasses a wide range of ideologies that blends populist sentiment with conservative and nationalist values, advocating for a return to what its supporters perceive as a more prosperous and traditional America. MAGA promotes policies that frame cultural changes and diversity as threats to America, sentiments of which these influencers and their audiences already subscribe to. By aligning with these content creators, Trump weaponized the same techniques influencers use to exploit their followers and monetize their platforms, to radicalize and mobilize voters on an unprecedented scale. This strategy proved itself to be successful.
It is now official. CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris and making a political comeback unlike any in modern American politics.
Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends on this incredible movement.
Statistics revealed that young men favor Trump by a 14-point margin. This marks a notable ideological shift, with young male voters transitioning from a Democratic majority in 2020 to leaning Republican in the recent election. As described by Jason Hannon, every subject of public discourse, including politics, has been converted into a form of entertainment. To compete for the public's increasingly short and fragmented attention span, it is necessary to conform to the medium to which those attention spans are most accustomed. By joining influencers on platforms where entertainment and politics merge, Trump capitalized on the short attention spans of young audiences and maximized his time to connect with audiences in a personal, intimate, and authentic space. His appearance on live streams and podcasts, combined with the endorsement of the influencers, created an ecosystem where his messages were amplified without the filter of mainstream journalism. These influencers, already trusted by their audiences, acted as intermediaries, presenting Trump as not just a politician, but a figure who understood and validated their frustrations. This effectively allowed Trump to establish a parasocial relationship with their audience the same way they already had. The Hollywood Reporter addressed this tactic, stating that Trump had won what they called the influencer election. Trump immersed himself in creator culture, met them where they were, and embraced their mediums. Trump going on podcasts gave fans of those podcasts the opportunity to parasocially bond with the candidate.
I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank the Nelk Boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, Bustin' with the boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan.
Trump rewrote the rules of political campaigning, setting a precedent for future candidates to shift their campaign tactics to better suit news delivery in the digital age. Trump's victory has and will continue to leave a deep and troubling mark on America. The consequences of this election are far-reaching, with the most immediate and devastating effects felt by vulnerable and marginalized communities. The normalization of extremist ideologies through his campaign has legitimized hate groups and fostered an environment where intolerance is the new norm. Groups such as immigrants, LGBTQ+ individuals, racial minorities, and women now face an intensified wave of hostility, as right-wing fear-mongering frames them as scapegoats for societal problems. The messaging amplified by influencers won't just create division, it will legitimize laws and policies that strip away protections and rights for vulnerable communities and puts them directly under the threat of harm. Perhaps the most concerning impact is the foundation of democracy itself. By fostering distrust in traditional institutions and amplifying conspiracy theories, the strategy undermines the very systems meant to ensure fairness and accountability. Garnering news from entirely alternative sources increases the likelihood of being fed misinformation and biased news, as these platforms prioritize engagement over accuracy. This cycle of consuming unverified information deepens ideological divides and reduces trust in credible, fact-check journalism, leaving individuals more susceptible to manipulation. A well-functioning democracy relies on an informed electorate capable of engaging in critical discussions and making decisions based on facts and diverse perspectives. When biased and hateful narratives dominate the information landscape, public discourse becomes fragmented, and the shared understanding necessary for democratic governance erodes. By appealing to fear and division, leaders who use these influencers for their own political advantage undermine the principles of equality, justice, and representation. Although the traditional American dream may feel out of reach for many, there's an opportunity to build a new vision, one that celebrates the diversity of America and creates pathways to success for everyone. To achieve this, it is vital to prioritize fact-checking and media literacy education for online users, equipping everybody with the tools to navigate the digital landscape critically. Recognizing the dangers posed by misinformation and the platforms that amplify it is the first step towards fostering a shared vision for our futures. By rebuilding trust, embracing inclusivity, and promoting empathy, communities can work together to create a political and social environment where equality and opportunity are not just ideals, but realities for all Americans.